So if you have a chance to check out the website and try and attend, inshallah.
Yeah, go on.
Ready?
Yes.
Bismillah.
Huh?
I'm sorry, how much battery do you have?
56. It's full. I've got a charger.
iPhone?
Say it again?
It's iPhone?
No.
It's not
That's
iPhone.
not the Samsung.
Okay, sorry. Right.
Okay. So, Bismillah. We have a question here. If a person, due to illness, misses a number of fasts, and after the month of Ramadan, due to illness and the requirements of taking important medicine throughout the day, they couldn't make up until the next Ramadan, what is upon this person? Do they make the fast or now, or feed a poor person?
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, amma ba'd. With regards to missing days from last Ramadan, and you miss those days due to, as we said, a legitimate excuse, such as sickness, etc. Now the next Ramadan has come, and I have not made up those days as well. What do you do? We have several different issues in this one question. Question number one is, what was the reason behind your sickness? Temporary or terminal? Very, very important to differentiate between the two. A terminal illness, in which most cases, and Allah knows best, He's the one who cures, subhanahu wa ta'ala. The shifa is from Allah, but in most cases, it's not going to go away. Diabetes, or cancer, or things like this. Versus someone who was in a car accident, he broke his leg, and he had to take painkiller. Someone who got an infection, someone who had to hydrate his body, etc., which is going to go away, inshallah, 6 months at most. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. Difference number one. Difference number two is the concept between, is the thing going to happen again? Similar to the first scenario, but a bit more specific. Scenario number three, can you fast with difficulty? Can you fast with discomfort? Or is it against medical advice to fast? Or you cannot fast, you must eat every 2 hours and drink every 2 hours, etc. Everyone understand the difference here? There's a difference. So the general rule is that if it's a reoccurring issue of illness and sickness, it's one ruling, and that's feeding a poor Muslim for every day that's missed. As far as it's not a reoccurring issue, but it's a great deal of difficulty. I had the illness for 3 years straight. I had the condition for 4 Ramadan straight. Now it's gone, walhamdulillah. I've been cured by Allah. But that's 120 days, 150 days that I have to make up. That's burdensome. That's a haraj. That's a hardship upon that person. And during the time of that sickness, it was muzmin. It was something which was what? It was something which was continuous. It was terminal. So bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, in that scenario, in which there are 2 Ramadans, 60 days, which isn't that long, but let's say 90, 120, and now it's no longer a problem, and that issue we say bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, it's permissible for you to feed, even though you're no longer terminally ill and sick. But because of the number of the days, and because during that time, that period of time, you were terminally ill and sick, inshallah la haraj. As far as 10 days, 20 days, whatever, and the sickness is gone and it's over, we say no, do not feed, make up the days. Or you are terminally ill, but you can fast. It doesn't harm your health. It doesn't slow down your recovery, but it's a bit of a challenge. That's one thing. So there has to be a detail or details mentioned with regards to when you can and cannot make fidya. And the same applies to breastfeeding and pregnancy. It's easy for a man to say, you have to make up the days, feed poor people, and do this and that. But that's not you who's pregnant 1 year and breastfeeding for 2 years. Rather pregnant 1 year and the next year she's pregnant and breastfeeding. And a second, and a third, and the next thing you know, you have established a family, and there's 150, 130, 200 days of Ramadan that are upon her. That is a relative amount of money. Even in a third world country, in which you send the money overseas, you feed an impoverished country. You make fidya long distance, abroad. That costs money. Making up the days costs what? That costs money. So the qada and the it'am together, it's a haraj. And that's why some of the ulama of Islam, they say that if a woman has so many days piled up, then she just makes the fidya. She makes the it'am, she feeds, because it's a difficulty. And this is a general rule on many issues of Islam, such as people who do not pray. A person was a Muslim, and from the age 19 to 25, I didn't make salat, waliyadu billah. 19 to 25, I was lost. My name was Muhammad, I went to the club, I had a girlfriend, I didn't pray at all. How many people can relate to this situation now? So now, at the age of 25 and 26, I got into a car accident. I got stabbed. My friend got shot and killed, right? Whatever happened to me, I made umrah, whatever. I was spiritually awakened and enlightened. Now I want to be righteous and pious. No more clubs, no more this, no more that. But for all of those years, I didn't make the salah. Do I have to make up all of those prayers that I missed? If you say that I have to make them up, then there's no doubt that's a hindrance and an inhibitor for returning to Allah. And the first thing that the shaitan is going to say, it's too late for you now. 7 years of prayer you got to make up. 7 years, 6 years of salah you have to make up before you can make your salah now. So you know what? I might as well just keep going to the club and not praying. Not saying that just because a person goes to the club, he can't pray. We're not saying in reality. There's no talazum, bayna hada wa dhak. Alright? If you go to the club and you drink and you smoke and you pray, that's better. And that's obligatory. And do not allow the shaitan to trick you from making the salah no matter what sin you make. But I'm trying to mention a scenario of a Muslim being lost. So some of the ulama of Islam, they say that when you come back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you do not have to make those prayers up. And the reason why you don't have to make those prayers up is one of two. First reason, either you were no longer a Muslim when you weren't praying, according to that view, ala al-qawl, li takfir, tarik al-salah, kufran akbar, or the concept is that it's so much and it's going to be a clear, tangible hardship. And the same applies to so many days with regards to missed days of Ramadan. That's the concept that I'm trying to get to. And inshallah, hopefully that's clear. Wallahu a'lam.
How can we prevent from doing bad sins even during Ramadan? And how can we avoid this even if we have evil whisperings?
Avoiding sins in Ramadan, you're being whispered to by your nafs or by a shaitan, some type of devil or demon, whatever. The problem is, you have to look at what's causing you to fall into the sin. What's the reason? I have a migraine, my head is aching me. So I take some pills, some Excedrin extra strength, or Panadol, whatever you take. Obviously, that's a temporary fix. It relieves the pain, the swelling, the inflammation, so on and so forth. It's temporary. The next day, you have a migraine again. And the third, and the fourth, and the fifth, and then you have continual migraines or headaches. You can't keep taking the pills and drinking coffee, taking caffeine with the medicine to get rid of the migraine. There's something that your body is trying to tell you. There's something that you're not doing right, or something that you're clearly doing wrong, which is causing the migraine. And that is the concept of chronic sin. You keep making the same sin over and over again. There's a reason why. There's a reason why. You could be making the chronic sin because you're lonely. You're lonely, so you need to not just make the tawbah and that's it, but you're going to fall back into the same sin again the next day, the same night, until you root out the evil of loneliness. Of loneliness, whether it's you're not married, your wife or husband is in a different country, you live by yourself, you're the only Muslim on this block, the only Muslim in this town, etc. Alright, so you have to root out the reason. Why do you keep smoking cigarettes? Because I'm stressed. And I have to relieve the stress through smoking cigarettes. You making tawbah for smoking cigarettes, Allah forgive me, that's a good thing. But if you continue to be stressed, you'll open up another pack and you'll smoke again. Until you remove and root out the evil of stress. What is so stressful? It's the job. Quit that job, get another one. You're stressed out because of this situation or that situation. You remove the stress or find a different channel to get the stress out of you. If you don't root out the evil, it's going to reoccur. So this is an example and a template for any chronic sin that you make. Whatever that sin may be. And we're just mentioning examples. Until you root out the problem, in most cases, it's going to happen again. Let alone the fact that the shaitan, your nafs, your lusts, your desires, have programmed your mind to think about the sin. And it's one of the worst things that can happen to the human being, as we've mentioned in the lecture, is when the shaitan plays with your thoughts. And that was what he did with Adam alayhi salam and Hawa. He didn't physically dominate them. How much strength does Shaitan have? Did he have at that time? He didn't physically dominate them. He didn't physically threaten them. Look at the stories of the Quran. He never threatened Adam. He never threatened him, to harm his children. But he played games with his mind. He promised him things. He lied to him. He deceived and tricked him. He played mind games on him. And that caused him to make that sin. So the Shaitan, he plays games with the son of Adam. What does the Prophet ﷺ tell us when we make the salah? When you feel something in your stomach. When you leave the salah, you make the salam from the salah. Your mind is being played with by the Shaitan. And from those games is training you to make that sin. You have a free time, free moment. The first thing that a fiend or an addict of any substance thinks about is that act. Any extra money goes to that act. Money for your family, Hajj, Umrah, Masjid. No, the first thing I do with an extra dollar goes into the bottle. The first thing I do with my free time is I look at haram things on the internet. Think about it. Very first thing, right to that act, because you've trained yourself to go to that act. So you have to retrain yourself, unwire your mind and your nafs, your habits to make that sin. And if you don't, you're going to fall into it again. You're going to fall into it again. We're not talking about a sin that comes and goes. That's different. We're not talking about a sin that you fell into because you were weak or tired. That's different. We're talking about a chronic sin that reoccurs. You must root out the reason behind that sin. And until you do, 9 out of 10 times you'll fall right back into it again. So inside the month of Ramadan, or outside of the month of Ramadan, if you keep making these sins, you have to find out why. Once you've discovered the reason, seek Allah's help in rooting it out, which may take a week, may take a month, may take a year, may take 10 years, may take 3 years, but you have to start on it now. You have to start on it now, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Alright? Inshallah, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Another very important point with regards to avoiding sin in the month of Ramadan is looking at the ugliness of the sin in light of the beauty of the month. So if you were wearing a white garment and you walked by and I took a handful of mud and I threw it on your clothes, it's 20 minutes before Jumu'ah or the Eid, it would look really, really, really bad. It would look really bad. If you're wearing some bummy clothes coming from work, you work outside, you do construction, you work in a kitchen, you work in a slaughterhouse, you wouldn't really care because your clothes aren't really fancy. They're nothing special. This is normal. One more stain or blotch, big deal. But I have such a clean, beautiful, fine garment on that the smallest blemish sticks out. And it looks horrible. That's how you have to look at the month of Ramadan. It's a month, it's so pure, so sacred. Any small blemish is just going to ruin everything. Number 2, the difference between someone coming to the masjid with a stain on their thobe and the imam coming with a stain on his thobe. I'm standing in front of all of you and I have a stain. A stain on my thobe is 10 times worse than a stain on your thobe. You can hide, you can sit in a crowd. Everyone has to see this stain. And those are many sins that people make in the month of Ramadan, in which you are an example for the people. You're an example for the non-Muslim. This is what Muslims do in Ramadan. You're an example for the sinful Muslims and the weak Muslims who are trying. They see you, the religious person, making a sin in the month of Ramadan is uglier. So you have to look at the concept of how ugly this sin is. And the month of Ramadan, rewards are greater and sins are also greater. Just like certain locations, the Masjid, Mecca, Medina, Jerusalem, certain places in which the reward is higher because of the place, Sharaful Makan, the nobility of the location, and the same applies to sin. Making a sin in Mecca is not like making a sin in Medina or other places, Medina, etc. So my advice, Bidnillahi Ta'ala, is for you to sit down and to critically think and look at the situation. Why am I keep making this sin? What is the reason, the cause behind this sin? And how does it look? And how do I feel? And before you know it, Ramadan will go. It will come and it will go. This was an opportunity, a chance that I had, and I let it slip out of my fingers. If that doesn't shake you and scare you up and make you feel bad, then Allah knows best the state of your heart. You have 30 days to get closer to Allah for free, easily. No shaitan, no this, no that. And you let it slip out of your hands. No doubt you're a loser. And you have to feel that remorse and that regret. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ said the words he was quoted to have said. The Ramadan, it comes, raqama anfu. He says, a man, he allows Ramadan to come and go, and he's not forgiven. He allows his parents to live and die, and he wasn't forgiven. That was your chance to Jannah, just taking care of your mother. looking after your father. You let him die, you buried him, and you didn't look after him. You're wretched. So I think bid'nillahi ta'ala, the concept of tawbah and istighfar and good company and all of those things, those are well known. They're well known of what to do when you make tawbah. They're well known. But my message here is the mind. The warfare that the shaitan plays with your head. And if you do not look at it like that, then in most cases you'll fall victim to it again, if it's something that you're doing chronically. And Allah knows best. No problem. It's fine.
So, what is the ruling on a Muslim woman becoming a doctor in the West, specifically as she might be in contact with non-mahram? They have to wear uniform, etc. Also, what is the ruling on studying the dead body, examples, dissecting organs?
With regards to a sister becoming a physician, a doctor or a nurse in the Western countries, but in reality in Eastern countries as well. What is the ruling on touching non-mahram men touching her, etc.? Dissecting bodies, examining bodies, looking at the aura of these people, so on and so forth. We have to understand something with regards to the question and any other issue. And that is many people, and it's a good thing in general, they think or they feel that everything that happens in the West is bad and haram and negative. And if it's done in the East, it's different, and the ruling is different, and it's positive, and it's halal. That's not necessarily the case. Is there a difference between the East and the West? Of course. Is there a difference between the United Kingdom and countries in the Middle East or other parts of the Muslims? No doubt. There's no question about that. No person in his right mind is going to reject the reality that there are differences, virtues. No doubt about that. No matter how lost certain people become, no matter how secular certain countries are, there's still going to be some things which are better than the Western countries. You can't change that. You can't change that. However, we have to realize that all of these worldly things are carbon copies of the Western countries. The whole entire modern medical system, construction, engineer, education, it comes from where? It comes from the Western countries. So what women have to wear and how they dress and who they interact with and what bodies they dissect, they're getting it from France, Germany, America, and the UK. So the ruling there is also the ruling here. Once I was asked a question, a brother, he said, how to avoid music in the West. How to avoid music in the West. The question is how to avoid music in the East. Everyone understand this? It's not just a place in which there's music in the West. You can go to the Prophet City and hear music. People play and blast music on a person's phone. They have music. So oftentimes people, they get into this mindset that is just demonize the West and everything, and the West is haram and bad and eat, and that's not. That's inaccurate, first and foremost, and it can lead you to letting your guard down. And I've seen it with my own two eyes. Brothers that were pious and righteous in Philadelphia, striving because they knew they were in the belly of the beast. They knew that all the haram things surrounded them. And when they went to Medina, they wouldn't pray in the masjid. They would chase girls. They would do this. They would do that. They stopped studying. They lost everything because they let their guard down. Because it's Medina. So there's no shaitan out there. There's no such thing as a girlfriend. There's no zina in Medina. There's no music in Medina. And actually, those things are what? There as well. And with certain individuals, not everyone, certain individuals stronger than in the West. Because in the West, everyone has it. And in the East, it's taboo. You have to go out your way to get it. Once more, the what? The critical thought. Everyone understand this? So a woman being a doctor, a woman being a nurse, a woman being a physician, Western country or Eastern country. Everyone understand this? There are haram things done there, and there are haram things that can be done what? Here. Alright, that's first and foremost. As far as the specific answer, then medicine is a necessity of life. And seeking the cure and having people that have skill and talent and knowledge of medicine and of healing and things like this is a necessity of life. And if it's a necessity of life, then the Muslims have to have a share and have to have a hand in it. And if they don't, then they will be at the mercy of the non-Muslims. And they'll be at the care and the charity of the non-Muslims. And if not the mercy and the care of the non-Muslims, then of course there are going to be many problematic issues. Problematic issue number one is the concept of higher hand versus the lower hand. And the Izzah is for Allah, it's for His Messenger, and it's for the believers. And if we don't have no technology, no medicine, no this, no that, we're going to be begging and asking with our hands out to the non-Muslims. And that gives them the Izzah over us. And that is totally against the Quranic teaching. That the Izzah is for Allah, for His Messenger, and for the believers. Problem number two. If we are at the care and the charity and the sadaqah of the non-Muslims, absolutely, there are going to be many haram things that we're going to be forced to do. Because it is their system for which they have no problem, men and women shaking hands. They have no problem with interest and usury. They have no problem with selling something that you don't own. They have no problem with alcohol, with the flesh of swine, and the list goes on. Free mixing and touching, that's normal. It's normal and it's healthy to have a girlfriend when you're 16 years old in the Western society. It's normal. Not only normal, it's allowed, but it is encouraged to have a young girlfriend and a young boyfriend. It's encouraged. It allows you to learn life, to enjoy life. You grow up, you get a fiance, whatever, and then you get married. It's normal. So if it's their system 101%, and we're behind them, under them, beneath them, we are going to be forced to fall into some of these impermissible things. And there are other problems as well. So therefore the Muslims have to have some type of presence in the medical field. The Muslims need an establishment of medicine in which the woman does not have to shake the man's hand, in which the genders are properly looked after, in which the people make the salah on time, in which. How can we establish those things if we have no doctors, if we have no nurses? How can those things be established if the Muslims don't have any buildings that they own, not that they're renting and paying off or whatever the case may be? So these things are a necessity. Your wife gives birth. Do you want her to go to the hospital? The only doctor right now is a man. He's going to touch your wife's stomach. He is going to look at your wife. He's going to give birth to your child, whether you like it or not. If Muslims have no doctors, Muslims have no physicians, and as I just said, if Muslims do not have a presence in the hospital, then you cannot complain. And you cannot say, I don't want no man looking at my wife and touching my wife's stomach. You can't complain if you're not willing to what? Try to make a difference. So with that being said, these things are a necessity. And if they are a necessity, certain things, not all things, my words, I quote, certain things at certain times which would normally be haram or disliked are allowed at certain times because of necessity. Because of necessity. Because of what? Necessity and haja. Certain things at certain times and certain situations. Whether that is the woman who touches a man who touches a woman, the private part of this person, this dead body that you're dissecting, or whatever the case may be, because it's a necessity. And if the Muslims are not certified and licensed, how can they practice medicine? How can they establish their own Islamic centers? How can we halalify the clinic or the hospital if we have no presence and if we have no certification? Everyone understand this? Now, the next point of advice is that if you enter into this field, it does not mean that you're allowed to do whatever you want to do and dress how you want to dress and wear whatever you want to wear. No, there are rules and certain things that you must stand up for and certain things that you have to instill and require and complain about and request. And if we have a statement we say in the United States, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. The squeaky wheel gets the oil. You have a chair or a table or something with wheels. You don't know that it needs oil until you what? Until you hear it. You know it needs a little bit of what? A little bit of grease. You don't know something until you hear that thing. So if the Muslims go to school, they get these professions, and they don't require halal meals as an example, or hijab, I cannot wear the pants, the scrubs, I have to wear a skirt. It can be the same color, same fabric, but please allow me to wear a skirt. This is a letter from my local imam. I have to take a break on Friday, so on and so forth. If the Muslims don't squeak and swill, they won't get any grief. Because it's nothing wrong with them for women to wear pants. That's normal. Shake hands. But a Muslim who complains, who writes a letter, who requests, who makes a petition, who brings his or her imam from the masjid, thank you very much. This is a member of my congregation. I please ask you to allow this person not to be able to do this. Please make them exempt from doing that. If the Muslims don't speak up and make a presence, then the rules will never ever change. Everyone understand this? So that's the next piece of advice, that if you're going to go to school for medicine, Speak up and try, and you'll be shocked. Many non-Muslims don't have a problem with many things. Okay, no problem. You want to wear pants or a skirt? Doesn't matter to me. Last but not least is make sure that you excel. Make sure that you're the best. You are the best. They may not like your religion. They may not like your rules. They may say these are our rules or our customs. It is the best surgeon that we have, and they're a Muslim. You bring your respect to Islam, and they're forced to accept some of your conditions. I'll go to another hospital. No problem. Fine. I can't pray. I have to shake it. Okay, have a nice day. I'll take my expertise to another establishment, and they will appreciate my expertise. Do you think they're going to allow that? No. Please stay. We'll compensate. We'll do this. We'll make the necessary accommodations for you. We'll make a prayer hall for the Muslims. We'll allow the sisters to do that, so on and so forth. So if we want to live in these countries, certain things we have to acclimate to, and we have to adjust to, and we have to halalify and sunnify these things, which contain haram elements. If we can't, if it's too much, and it's a necessity, then that's the ruling for that. But it doesn't mean that we do these things recklessly, without no type of consciousness of the rules of Allah and of His what? Of His messenger. Alright? So in order to establish certain things, certain times, certain things, you may have to do something which is haram. And that's another wise statement that we say, give an egg to receive a hen. Give an egg to get a whole entire chicken. In order for the Muslims to have their own polyclinic, the person who runs that clinic has to be what? Certified. You cannot become certified until you dissect this, until you do this, until you look at this. It's the rules. Certain sacrifices are needed for there to be a halal establishment. And if we're not willing to make those sacrifices, we will go to the non-Muslims, we will have conflict, we will have friction, we'll be begging and asking, our hands will be out, and we'll be forced to do even more what? Haram. We'll be forced to do even more haram. So I don't want to give an egg. I don't have that many eggs to give. But if I give this egg in goodwill and good faith, they will return a hen. Now I have my own hen who will produce the eggs and incubate the eggs. I don't need to go and buy anyone's eggs anymore. We now make our own eggs as Muslims. We have our own clinic, our own barbershop, our own bank, our own slaughterhouse, our own airlines, our own, in which we halalify and sunnify and remove the haram elements. You can't buy a house like that here at this establishment. We have an alternative though. You don't need to go and do this no more because they have another way. You don't need to take this thing which has this type of pork or gelatin or whatever. We have something else to give you. How can we do that if we're still under the charity and the care of the what? Of the non-Muslims, and they would dictate to us their rules. Wallahu a'lam. Alhamdulillah. Sallallahu alaihi wa sallam wa barak ala abdihi wa rasulihi nabiyina wa imamina Muhammad.